Hey guys, Sundown here. This is gonna be my chapter review to One Piece 953 Once Upon a Fox. Now I was gonna write up, the typical script kind of thing, like little points that I wanted to talk about, expand on it further as I progressed through the chapter. But I feel like just going through the chapter kind of live, even though I've already read it, is the better approach here. It might be a longer review just because of how much we actually got this chapter, but it's a pretty solid chapter. So the first thing we actually see is the cover story. People are going apeshit about. We see Gang Beige, otherwise known as, I forgot his first name, Capone Beige, and he's essentially jacked an enemy ship, and they're onwards towards Thriller Bark, and we know that Thriller Bark is currently not in the possession of or being guarded by Maria, seeing as he was, trying to beef Blackbeard. So we'll see how that goes, but chances are there's an important point there. There's a key point coming up in that encounter. So we go to the chapter where we see Kawamatsu after Hiyori has just left him a message. So she's like, "Dear Kawamatsu, thank you for all you've done. I'll be fine. Peace out." So she's done one. And Kawamatsu's obviously in tears. This is his pride as a samurai on the line, but also he has love for Hiyori because he's basically been her parent, her guardian, and she's dipped out. So this is a huge shot to his pride, a huge shot to his honor, and just a major stab wound right into the heart. Big time feels here. So he's running across the country, essentially going through rain, snow, winds, heat, going into the bathhouse and stuff like that, looking for Hiyori, trying to find any semblance of a clue as to where she is. We come back to present day Ringo, where we see Yukimaru running away from Zoro. He's bleeding out big time, and Zoro is running after him and finds a place that he's confused by something that he sees. We'll come back to that later. We go back to Oihagi Bridge, where we have Yukimaru still, no, not Yukimaru, we have Kawamatsu still speaking to Hiyori and saying that she should just like jump on his back, let's go to where Zoro is or whatever. And she makes a face saying that, I'm not a kid, you don't need to carry me on your back and all that good shit. And she asks him here, like, why, of all the things that you could do, why did you come here? Why are you here? And he kind of looks to the sky like, I don't know, man. And he answers with, after she left Kawamatsu and he was running across the country, he came here to take care of some rather dull matters. And in his head, you can see he's thinking about what the dull matters were. And the dull matter is, if something terrible befalls the princess, which is what Yukimaru, this is his thought process back then he will commit seppuku here at this place in Ringo, at this bridge in Ringo, at Oihagi Bridge. That's where he would commit seppuku. So that's essentially, seppuku is usually done by a samurai in order to kind of like regain their honor. If they committed a crime or something like that, they were given the option of seppuku. You die in honor, take your own life, and essentially regain the honor that you'd lost. So that's what his idea was here. He was like, I'm going to commit seppuku. So, I mean, he describes it as a dull matter. People picked up on this. He describes it as a very dull matter. And the dull matter he's talking about is the fact that he was about to take his own life. So it's a very, very kind of dark theme here, even though it's kind of glossed over. But Kawamatsu was about to, he was about to end his own career right there because of the shame and the self-hate, essentially, he couldn't deal with for not having been able to take care of Hiyori. So he then goes on to explain a bit further. He says, like Hakumai, this large northern expanse of Ringo was ruled by the powerful and renowned Shimotsuki family. So Ringo and Hakumai were both ruled by the Shimotsuki family. And the daimyo's name was Lord Shimotsuki Ushimaru, who was a master swordsman. He always had a fox at his side, but eventually Ringo became a wasteland to Kaido. And the key thing here is, and everyone else picked up on this is not my own research, but going through Reddit and stuff like that, loads of people have picked up on the fact that Shimotsuki was the name of Zoro's village. We know that Zoro he wasn't born in his village, he was raised there from like, we don't know how old onwards, but he wasn't born there. So there's a whole bunch, and also the silhouette of the daimyo of the Shimotsuki family, Shimotsuki Ushimaru, looks a hell of a lot like Zoro. So there's a whole bunch of speculation going into maybe this is a relative of Zoro's, maybe father, maybe an ancestor of some sort. But maybe Zoro is actually from Wano, and then Zoro meaning fox in Spanish, and they have foxes at their sides. The Shimotsuki family, or at least Ushimaru did. Everyone's kind of going like, "Ooh, maybe." Sounds like, you know what? There's so many different red flags here that I get the feeling that Oda might actually just be like trolling us a bit. But there are so many different pointers to maybe Zoro being from Ushimaru, and maybe from Ringo, maybe Hakumai, somewhere from the Shimotsuki family's kind of designated ruling places. And maybe this is how he'll gain ownership of like Shusui, something like that. But we'll come back to that at the end. So there's also this burial practice that Kawamatsu mentions, because it's so cold in Ringo. The people that have died here, their corpses have been left in coffins, but they haven't rotted for centuries, and their graves are marked by their swords. So there's this really, really cool concept that they have in Ringo, which I thought was pretty badass. So all of these graves have like really famous swords stuck as their not really headrests, but as their tombstones essentially. And because of that, Ringo attracts a lot of grave robbers. But actually, does he mention it here? I can't remember whether he says it here, but essentially he says that, I think he says it a little bit later on in this chapter, but everyone who is born in Ringo is given a sword at their birth, and they live with that sword, use that sword, become great samurai, whatever they do, and then when they die, that sword marks their grave. So I thought that was a really, really cool concept. I was like, I can dig that. That's pretty cool. So we then see Kawamatsu when he was thinking of committing seppuku. He comes to this Oyahagi bridge. Well, he's gone past the Oyahagi bridge, which is where this lone kind of koma. He calls it Onimaru, which is the name of the fox, but it's Koma Kitsune, I think it is. Yeah. So I think Koma Inus, if my memory serves me well, from Beelzebub, they were kind of like guardian deities, not very like powerful beings, but kind of guardian deities of shrines and stuff like that. So this Onimaru is kind of like the guardian deity, whatever it is, to this place in Ringo, to the center of Ringo, which is where all of these swords with their marked, all of these graves of their marked, with their marked graves and their swords, essentially these famous blades were. So he sees this fox, which essentially was the right hand man, or basically the pet of possibly Shimotsuki Ushimaru. Actually, it even says, yeah, he was the companion of Ushimaru, who was the late daimyo of Ringo, so I assume he died because of Kaido. So the fox collapses after having just run through some grave robbers and stuff like that. He's been protecting this place for like 5 years, more than 5 years after the destruction of Ringo, and he's been there protecting all these blades. And yeah, this is actually where it comes up, where people are born in Ringo with the sword, they live with their swords, die with their swords, and it serves as their grave markers. So he essentially rehabilitates what's his name, Onimaru until he comes back into health. And the next couple days or something, my stomach, whoa. So the next couple days or something, you see Kawamatsu actually there doing the grave robbing, and obviously you see Onimaru, he's just there like going apeshit. But I think we very quickly would have realized, but obviously the fox Onimaru wouldn't have known. But Kawamatsu's there trying to get him to understand. He's like, I get that you don't want me to rob these graves, but in 13 years' time, there's going to be another huge battle. So he's there preparing for, because he wasn't sent into the future. He was still in the kind of past with Hiyori. So he knew that in the 20 years that he would eventually be reunited with Kinemon, with Momonosuke, with Okiku, all these guys. He knew that he would be with them eventually, so he wanted to prepare. And his kind of whole thing was, all these blades that are here, they're of samurai that have died for the country, and they've died protecting the country, and they've probably died, a lot of them, from protecting the country against the Beast Pirates and Kaido. So their blades have no rest. They've died, they've been murdered, and their blades mark their graves. But what we need to do is we need to raise their blades, use their blades, and use them to conquer, or to remove this oppression that we're suffering. And then finally they can rest. Their blades can rest. The spirits within their swords will be proud. and that's what gives the samurai power. So I thought that was really touching. I thought that was really, really kind of like a deeper dive into, you know, the connection between the samurai and their blades, especially in the One Piece world. I assume there was a deeper connection even in in normal Japanese history, but especially in the world of One Piece, the blades to the samurai are a very important thing. So Onimaru is obviously still there, going apeshit. He's not going to just give away these swords that he's been protecting for a long time. But then he sees Kawamatsu kind of crying at the fact that, you know, he couldn't protect Hiyori. So this is the one last thing he can do. The only thing he can do in the next 13 years is prepare some weaponry for his friends that are going to return, to prepare to defeat Kaido. You know, that one last thing, that one last effort he can provide. So after seeing this, and after God damn it, after Kawamatsu says to me, he's like, yo, if you're hungry, just bite off my arm and let me continue doing my shit. So Onimaru's was there like, alright, cool, I'll let you do it. The next day, Onimaru's actually digging up graves himself, having understood what Kawamatsu meant. So he's there digging up graves, collecting these swords, and then we see like a small montage of like them going through many different days, possibly over months and years, of, you know, going through these graves and essentially taking the swords from these graves. So we see Kawamatsu thinking about selling a couple blades because he's hungry. He says he's borrowed some food. He probably stole some food. And then we see the inception of this idea of, you know, the guardian of the Oihagi Bridge, which leads to the center of Ringo. And we see that it was actually first Kawamatsu who took on the guise of Gyukimaru, this protector of the center of Ringo. So that's where Gyukimaru in the present time, which we know from this is the fox Onimaru, that's where he kind of got this idea from. And after doing that for a while, Kawamatsu went to the capital. He screwed up a bit and he got caught stealing abura age or something like that. But yeah, abura age, which is some sort of tofu based treat or something like that. So we have, what's her name, Hiyori asks Kawamatsu, like, are you here to meet with the fox? He's like, it's been 13 years, I don't expect Onimaru to actually be here, but what I am here for are the weapons, and it's probably only enough for a few hundred people, but that's what we need. We need at least some sort of start to the weaponry. So Zoro's there, he's like, yo, I didn't find Gyukimaru, but he left this door open, so should we go down? Is it a trap? And Kawamatsu instantly identifies what it is. He gets a call from Kinemon by the looks of things. And it's here that he's like, you know what, dude? No matter how many soldiers we gather, no matter how many friends we get, we're gonna have enough weapons. And he sat there in a room with halberds, spears, swords upon swords upon swords. And we know from this that the fox, in Kawamatsu's absence, has been gathering swords, preparing for the day that they can fight back against Kaido. So he's like, I'm going to send some forces to the location. Well, he says to Kinemon to send some forces over to the location that he's about to tell him. And he's confused as to why there are so many swords. And he's thinking, you know what? Was it Onimaru or was it the work of a human? It looks like it was the work of a human. We then see the next page. Gyukimaru is just kind of looking. He's understood that everyone's gone into that small passageway to find the swords. He's done his job. He converts back into his fox form. And he just walks away. And I was like, you know, are we going to see him again? I hope we do get to see him again. Because, you know, I don't want this to be the end of the tale of Gyukimaru. There's got to be more to it. So I'm hoping we get back to him. But then we have Hiyori come up to Zoro, who's sat outside. And she's like, you know what, your sword, if it's truly Shusui, I want you to give it back to this country. And he's like, nah. That's my sword. But this is the awesome part. This is where everyone's gone apeshit. She's like, okay, I'll give you a suitable replacement. One equivocal to Shusui. It's my late father, so Odin's sword. And it's the famous blade, the kind of treasured blade as well. I assume it would be Enma. And if you've watched Dragon Ball Z, you know the god of hell in Buddhism is Enma, and it even says it. And it's a legendary blade, but it's a legendary blade which gave Kaido his one and only scar, which is like down right in front of his kidney. And that I was like, ooh, that's kind of nice, but I don't, at the same time, I don't want Shusui to be taken away from Zoro. So there's a few different things that can go down here, or maybe just one different thing. But Shusui, like Gyukimaru said, once Shusui had been taken away, there were a series of misfortunes which hit Wano essentially at the same damn time, with Kaido coming, Odin being killed, and all that stuff. The red scabbards all being scattered. So what I'm hoping is that Zoro takes Enma. He's cool with using that. He gets an upskill, and Enma's got to be some sort of cursed blade, right? It's called the God of Hell. It's got to be some sort of cursed blade. And the thing with Shusui was that Ryuma told Zoro, he's like, the blade has chosen you, so you're the wielder. And I feel like Enma will need to go through kind of some sort of initiation with Zoro to like choose him. Because if it's a cursed blade, it's not just gonna let him wield it because he's a nice guy. There's got to be something to Zoro which Enma likes, considering he's that Ashura kind of character. He has the move called Ashura. And this is called Enma. It kind of fits in, and I'm hoping we get to see something there. But if Zoro uses Enma, and I'm hoping he's also given license to use Shusui, and we also have the Nidai Kotetsu, which is the progression to Zoro's Sandai Kitetsu, I think it is. And so that means there's 3 blades which Zoro could use, as well as his original blade, which is Wado. I think it's Wado Ichimonji. But that's 4 blades which Zoro has the option to use. So I'm hoping he'll go with the 3 kind of awesome sounding blades. Enma, Shusui, and Nidai Kotetsu. And if not Shusui, then his own Wado Ichimonji. But then it's the question of, at the end of this arc, will he leave Shusui in Wano, or will he take it back, and will he give Enma back to Wano? So what I'm thinking is, and someone actually made mention of this on Reddit, I think it was, but Enma is still the blade of Odin, right? Or it was the blade of Odin. So I'm hoping once Zoro's done everything he needs to with that, he'll give it back to the ruler of Wano, who I'm actually hoping, I hope he gifts it to Momonosuke, seeing as he's the actual heir to the throne. But I'm hoping beyond hope, even though this is maybe not like technically correct, because historically I'm not sure if a woman would be able to take the throne or the shogunate in Japan. So I'm assuming the same will reflect here, but I really, really want Hiyori to take the throne per se. Just because I feel like she's put in a lot of work. She's been here for the last 20 years in that timeline, and she's there making the decision, I'll give you Enma so long as you give us the treasure of this country back. So she's making some big time decisions. She's there putting in some work, and I'm hoping she actually gets some like big time reward by the end of the arc. I'm hoping she actually does get to maybe she becomes the champion of Wano, essentially the leader of Wano. I'd say until Momonosuke reaches age, but I feel like that's an addendum I wouldn't want to have to a title that I was given. You have the title until your brother reaches age. I want her to be the ruler, and I want Momonosuke essentially to then be free to maybe be like, I don't know, maybe wander around a bit like with Pedro when he was told, reach admiral level and you can come join Roger's crew and stuff like that. A little bit like that. I want Momonosuke to have a little bit more freedom, giving Hiyori the kind of ruling capacity over Wano. That would be cool. And if Momonosuke then had possession of Enma because Zoro gave it back to them, that would be cool. Zoro would then have Shusui, which was a sword that chose him and was given to him by Ryuma, the legend of Wano. He would have Nidai Kotetsu, which is the logical progression from one of his current blades, and then he would have Wado Ichimonji, I think it is. I've been referring to it as that for the last 5 minutes. And I'm hoping that would then be his black blade. So that's the end of the chapter. I really enjoyed it. It ended on a hype note with, Enma and the one and only blade that actually left a scar on Kaido. Maybe there's something to that. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a technique Odin used, but there seems to be something behind the blade as well. I don't know. But let me know what you guys thought of this chapter. Let me know what you guys thought of this review. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in a bit.